Colony are the last vestiges of humanity on Earth. They cover themselves in armor to protect their bodies from the dust as their strike forces of seekers hunt for salvage at any cost. They bring back their plunder to dome cities, autonomous colonies where those without armor scrape by protected by machina force fields. In-game, colony allies attack your opponents and retrieve cards from the dust.
What's going on, YouTube? Earth Power back with CVH.
Hey everybody.
And we are getting into the Colony faction today. So, the Colony faction, similar to the Biofauna, is comprised of 10 cards with a curve that ranges from 2 to 6. And we're going to get into the effects of these guys. Try to keep it short and sweet for you today. We got into a lot of the rules. We talked about the shielding and dust retrieval mechanics of the Biofauna. Colony is going to be similar with some of the shields, but a lot of this stuff is more or less like interactions with other pieces on the board. I think the idea behind at least the lore of the Colony is that this is the group that you come from. As a player, you're a diver. And I think the idea of being a diver is that you're part of this colony, which is trying to revive its islands. So a lot of these cards interact with different pieces of the game in almost every way. So I'm sure I'll get corrected on that as we go through these 10 cards, but that is my initial idea of how this works. Christian, any thoughts before we get into some of these cards?
I think I'm ready to go. But hey, if you're enjoying the reviews, make sure you hit like, hit subscribe. Make sure you check out the Kickstarter link in the description. It's made by one of our best friends, Spencer Swan. So hey, there's still time to pledge and reserve your copy if you are interested.
Yes, please do that. As of this video's recording, we're sitting at about 12.6K, and we need to get to 20. So we're getting there, piece by piece.
Not we, but him. It's all for Spencer.
He's getting there. He's getting there. I'm just contributing content. So the first card in the Colony faction, TOWERSHIELD Guards. So this is our only 2-cost card in the entire Colony faction. 2 cost, it provides a shield. It says when charging this ally as a shield, it is efficient. So very similar to Lavender Links and Ferntip Hair, it doesn't have efficient unless you do the effect, which means you cannot play this card if you've already played your ally action for the turn. And then the follow-up effect is when you charge this ally, draw a card. So when it's charged as a shield and it gains efficiency, it flips up and then you draw a card. So a neat little shield. A lot of value early on. I don't see this card being very good as you get to the mid and late game, just because I think you're going to either come into better shields or just have better options. Cards only getting efficient when it's being charged as a shield. So it's probably the least valuable of the 2 drops that we've looked at so far. Christian, your thought?
Yeah, I agree. Late in the game, I mean, if you can play it efficiently, it's not making anything actively worse. You're getting a free energy and you draw. But the only problem is if you have a better shield, you're gonna have to get rid of that shield. Yeah.
That's really all it is. It's not even providing energy at that point. So
yeah, you'd have to get rid of the shield you have, which is really unfortunate, and you don't normally want to do that. So it depends on what kind of build you have. If this is like the only shield you have and you can keep affording to play it, might be worth it in the late game. But yeah, it can be really solid early, of course, and just a nice little 2-cost thing to weave into your purchases.
Yeah, I think something to note too, and what we should have said, before we started recording a lot of these videos, is Spencer's looking for input on this game, and we know that it's hard for you guys to get hands-on with it. Tabletop Simulator is great in the sense that it just gives you the ability to play the game, but it's not a very efficient way to play the game. But I think a neat little buff to TOWERSHIELD Guards is Christian and I were looking at PDFs of cards, like kind of where they were and where they are now, who it was and who it is now. I think TOWERSHIELD Guard could benefit from just having that energy. I think that's what would make this more of a I want to grab it versus I don't want to touch it.
Yeah, cards have changed a lot. Excuse me for looking at all these different versions of cards.
Yeah,
at least I'm getting the names right.
It's just a Tower Shield Guard seems like it's a fine line between just I don't want it versus it's too good, and I don't know what the in between is there. I know there's a way to make this card good, but I'm not seeing it.
Yeah, it's kind of just like a chump blocker that cycles. It's not the worst thing,
Yeah.
just not the
Not
most
the
exciting
worst.
thing ever.
Yeah, after 3-4 turns into the game, it's just not a card you want to see, which is why you have the ability to dust cards. But yeah, it's just not something that seems high value. But let's get to our next card, Mr. CAMOCLOAK Sniper. Christian, you want to take this one?
Sure thing. It's a 3 energy cost, and it's efficient, so you can play it whenever you want, as we know, and it attacks one of your opponents. Choose one card from an opponent's discard, then dust it, and it's also worth an energy. So really easy card to play whenever you want in your turn, and this is why you want little shields like Tower Shield Guards sometimes, because this is like a really can be a potentially feel bad card to have played on you if you just had an explosive turn and you have some really good stuff in your discard pile. CAMOCLOAK can snipe it away, as the name implies.
Yeah, talk about cards with just high value for not a lot of cost. I think this card is just one of those cards that even as you get towards like, mid to late game, this card's just still incredibly effective for what it does. And just the ability to mess with your opponent's discard pile, which, and by all intents and purposes, is their most valuable resource because their discard pile is their deck. So the ability to just start sniping cards out of it, as the name implies, is absolutely nuts. So neat little wording choice for Spencer there, and how everything kind of comes together with what this card's actually trying to do. So I like this card a lot. I think it's one of the more powerful cards out of the Colony set.
Absolutely.
All right, and we move on to Mr. DOMECITY Militia, another 3-drop, also an attack card. Draw one card and choose. So draw one card and choose an opponent to discard 2 cards, or draw 2 cards and choose an opponent to discard 1 card. Really, really neat card here. And I'm double checking my wording as I say these because we've got some PDF files that we are reading these from. But yes,
Yeah,
this
we
card
do.
is correct as it stands currently. And again, disclaimer: these cards are all subject to change. But again, another just really effective early turn value card where, especially in a 1v1 game, the first ability there to just knock 2 cards out of your opponent's hand before he starts his turn is crazy. And then whether you're playing 2 or 4, 2, 3, or 4 players, the ability to kind of choose what you need, whether it's I need to draw cards to get combo pieces, I'm still making certain opponents discard things. It's just I like the flexibility of this card. It's just to me it seems like a really well designed card.
Yeah, only downsides are it obviously doesn't give you energy and it's not efficient, so this will pretty much be your play for the turn, but it can be a really powerful play, as you said, and it can draw you 2 cards, which hopefully could be efficient things that you can then follow up with and find those combo pieces. Or if you really need to just stop someone from going off, you can just target them and make them discard a bunch and see how that goes.
Yeah, and I think that's where this game shines. You bring up a good point of just how to use this card is that if you're ending your turn with it, yeah, choose an opponent, make them discard 2 cards, draw a card. If it's an energy cell or something efficient, great. But if this is like middle of the turn and it's your only play and you have 2 or 3 cards in your hand and they're not, duds, but they're just not great, draw 2 cards. If you get some efficient stuff, play it after. The flexibility, like I said, of this card is what makes it neat to me. All right. Getting into, again, I talked about CAMOCLOAK being probably one of the better cards in the Colony set. MACHBOOT Chaser. Man, has this card seen a lot of variations over the course of its lifetime. But this card is, again, probably one of the more sought after cards. This is one of the ones that you're going to see disappear out of its pile of 5 almost by mid game. It's probably going to be one of the first cards to disappear. Just so much value packed into one card.
Yeah.
4 cost, efficient, attack, choose an opponent to discard 1 card, and then draw 1 card. And it provides a victory point. Say less.
Yeah, it has some similarities to the last card we talked about. It loses the flexibility, but it gains that ever important efficient tag, which is it's just the nuts. So it costs 1 more to compensate, but being efficient, still letting you discard and draw at the same time, and the victory point is just the icing on the cake. Obviously, at the end of the game, Well, early in the game, you're rewarded for buying these because they're just good, and then late in the game, you're rewarded because they're victory points. So it's just good all around. Any point in the game, you're happy to see this guy.
Yeah, very much so. And I like your little quote there. If I can touch on that for a minute, how Spencer like adds quotes of like, this is the most beautiful card game I've ever seen, and he puts those quotes kind of like at the end of like in the summary page of a book.
What is my quote? It's just the nuts.
Just the nuts. It's just the nuts.
It's just the nuts.
Good card. All right, so we're gonna turn it down a notch and go and talk to Mr. WARRHINO General. It's an attacking shield, which is neat. I don't think we've seen a version of this yet with these two keywords on it. Cost 4. It says choose an opponent to dust 1 card from their hand or retrieve 1 card from dust. So, as a shield, this card is absolutely insane. If you charge it and cost your ally action for the turn, the following turns after that, this card becomes a massive problem for opponents. Making them dust cards from their hand is way worse than discarding them, if you couldn't tell, because you're not only just putting it back into their discard, which they'll just shuffle through and hopefully get later, you're literally putting it in the dust pile, which gives you the ability to start interacting with it and so on and so forth. But also the ability to retrieve a card from dust is just, again, another card very similar to Dome City that just gives you that flexibility of just being able to do multiple things based on a strategy and just be as efficient as possible. And it provides an energy. So yeah, just more icing, like Christian said earlier with the victory point stuff. Thoughts?
Yeah. Early mid game, you're probably going to just be hitting energy with the effect, but that's fine because you're reducing your opponent's purchasing power. You can target people with this card every turn, whoever seems to be doing the best. Or if you just want to make someone's life really bad after they have a bad start or something, I don't know. You can play the game how you want to. That's the glory of it. And then late in the game, you might actually hit like real cards with effects with this thing as people start, energies are going to be dusted or people are just going to have more powerful cards in their deck. So it just gets better and better. And it's a shield, so yeah, it's good.
Yeah, and you've play tested this game a little bit more than me, but more in the past, more so in the past than recently.
Back in the day.
I found that shields are way more effective early, and the ability to spend your first and second couple of turns to get a shield and charge them that way, so that you can start getting that immediate effect before opponents start, drafting and grabbing the attack cards that can come for your shields. This is one of those cards that, unless you just open with just the sin all bad hand of 2 fusion fragments and 3 energy cells, this card is almost, to me, almost immediately going to be a first grab. It's kind of like the pick one, card one of almost every set if this card's included, just because of the immediate value it can start grabbing while still being a shield, and you can start playing dusting stuff after. Because even if you pick this up on the first turn, it's not going to start seeing play until 2-3 turns later.
Yeah, the cards that force you to get rid of shields, like force opponents to get rid of shields, they tend to be a little more expensive, so you don't have to worry about them right away. And the early attack cards other people will pick up aren't really gonna, like I said, they're probably gonna hit energy, so you can play this card as a shield, and you won't even really feel pressured to block with it. You can just let it chill for very many turns on end.
It's in talking to strategies, and I think this is something Spencer wanted us to try to mention a little bit, and where I'm starting to see just kind of the interconnectivity of how some of these cards work. Starting off with a WARRHINO, and then going into what was the card? There's a Biofauna card that lets you use fusion fragments to draw cards. There's also Battle Ford Mage, one of Gorby's favorite cards. You saw him showcase that one a little bit when we were doing the box opening. But a lot of players early on are usually dusting their fusion fragments to just get them out of their hands so that they're making their deck a little bit more efficient in the early turns. WARRHINO, when it's paired with, if there's a Battle Ford Mage on the board, and the other card that lets you cycle through those things, this can be a really neat way to start taking advantage of some of those early drops that opponents make just kind of very casually, almost without thinking about it. So neat way to start using cards like that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. You want to tell us what this guy does? That's another mouthful if you say it too fast.
Is this ARMCANNON artillery?
Yeah.
All right, I had to make sure I had the right one. Arm cannon artillery. Say that 10 times fast, chat or YouTube comments. Cost 4. It's another attack one. This card has great art. It featured in the trailer and it looks really sweet.
Yes.
Choose an opponent to dust 1 card from their hand. Then you may discard a fusion fragment. If you do, chosen opponent dusts 1 more card. Gain an energy per card the opponent dusts, and it's already worth 1 energy. So you're already always getting 1 energy out of it, and then you're always getting another energy out of it because you're making them discard 1. And then, dust. There's so many things going on. You're always getting 1 energy, always getting 2 energy. Might even get a 3rd energy if you're able to discard a fragment. This is one of those cards that also means, hey, maybe you want to keep some fusion fragments around in your deck so you can really hit them hard with it.
Yeah, and I think this is one of those cards that I think is easily overlooked for beginners. This is definitely more of a not master level, but if you're looking at just players of tiers, just like the casual first time player, the intermediate, and then the guys who just know how the game works. This is definitely one of those cards that speaks to the guys who can kind of see 3-4 turns in advance and know kind of what a strategy that they're putting together is, because this feels like a very niche card in that way. Not that it's not a card that can just do what you need it to do, but it seems like a very hard card to use efficiently, for lack of a better word, since efficient is a key word in this game. But it seems like one of those cards that, if undervalued, only because it's a little bit harder to use than your other cards like WARRHINO or MACHBOOT or things like that.
Yeah, it depends on what's in the pool, but like some people will just, grab all the fragments, they'll keep them, and they'll grab as soon as they can, they'll grab all the fragments and they'll take all the cards that care about fragments, and other people will get rid of them all. But in some games, I just I'll take like an artillery. I'll just keep my original 2 fragments. I won't actively search for more or all of the cards like this, but I might just grab an artillery just because it hedges against potentially not awesome fragment draws without making me get rid of them. So I just keep a modest amount of victory points in my deck, and then I can sort of figure out if I want to go full fragment later once I see what other people are doing. But it's a decent early pickup, and it's not even terrible if you don't have any fragments.
Yeah, and to speak to that, I think one of the cool things about this game is just finding different lines to play. It's every time you play this game, it's going to be different. But I've noticed that, at least in some of the playtesting sessions I did with you guys, and then sitting down with Gorby the other day and sitting down with another buddy of mine who I introduced the game to, fusion fragments are seen as not useless, but for lack of a better word, it's just not a card most people want to hold on to, at least early when they don't really know how the game works. And our Arm Cannon Artillery is just another one of those cards that takes full advantage of that. Fusion fragment strategies are probably some of my more favorite with this game, just because of the ability for them to, it's like an all or nothing glass cannon, if you will. It's just you're either going to go real big or it's just not going to do anything at all. So, but when it goes big, it feels really good.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Poisonhand Chancellor. Probably one of my favorite arts from the Colony set. 5 cost, another attacking card, and I guess and now that I'm realizing it, that seems like it's Colony's gimmick, is just to attack the opponent as much as it possibly can, because we're the worst. Poisonhand Chancellor, 5 cost attack. Draw 1 card, and then all opponents discard 1 card, or just draw 2 cards, and it provides an energy. So another one of those neat cards, very similar to WARRHINO and DOMECITY, where it just kind of gives you those option plays. What's going to make the most sense for whatever strategy you're trying to put together.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite cards to drop on people, but that can also be said about the next 2 cards we'll talk about, because I just like Colony a lot because I'm the worst. But a table full of 4 people, you're making 3 people discard. That can be huge for sure, especially if you have other cards that maybe you're dusting them from discard piles or just ruining their strategies. And I just like drawing cards too, so even if I don't feel threatened by anyone, just getting that much farther ahead, that much deeper into my deck seems pretty good to me.
And that's really where the value of this card comes from, is if you're playing at a table of 4. That's how this game is intended to be played, with 4 people. Come up with 3 friends if you haven't already, because that's what makes this game just work, I think, the best as far as how the game was intended to be played. Because 1v1 Poisonhand Chancellor, really not something you want to go for.
It's a pot of greed.
Yeah,
it's a pot of greed.
The pot of greed that ends your turn. It's like, yeah.
So definitely not pod agreed. I
Right.
mean, I've had some really fun 3-person games too. I'm just 1v1 has different dynamics. Try it out. Let us know what you think once you get the game.
That's the way to put it. All right, Flameblade Drifter. Christian, you want to take this one?
Nope. I'm searching for it. Wait, I do. I found it.
Flameblade Drifter. All right, he's
All right. Flameblade Drifter, 5 cost attack, just like the last card. This one gives you 2 energy instead of just 1. Wait, did this one change or no? No, this one's the same.
Nope, this one's good. This
Okay,
one's, we're doing the right things.
Choose 1 card from each opponent's discard pile and dust it, and then retrieve 1 card from dust. So yeah, this is sick. You can't really do this play unless you can give something efficient, but you know, last card makes everyone discard a card into their discard pile, and this one takes their discard pile and makes them dust a thing, or you dust a thing out of it. It's amazing. You get to choose. Super damaging effect if people at the table happen to have discard piles and aren't going through their deck every turn, because you're like cherry picking their most powerful units and allies and then putting them into the dust, and then you're cherry picking the best thing you dusted and putting it into your deck. So yeah, this is a, you know, surprise, surprise, another one of my favorite cards to play. People who have like multiple drifters tend to do pretty well, I've noticed. Like, it's just really annoying to play against.
This card's value is through the roof. Again, discard pile can be basically exchanged for just saying a player's deck. You know,
Yeah.
you're like I said, taking the most powerful cards out of there, but then, you know, taking something from dust too. Like, even if your opponents, and I think when I play tested with you guys, if I remember using this card, or when this card was in play, you know, I had to keep in mind, not only was I trying to keep my deck count low, but I was trying to make sure that I always, whatever hand I finished with was getting discarded, to where when I drew, I had less than 5 cards in my
Yeah,
deck.
that's huge.
Shuffle my graveyard in, because when this card's in play, it's terrifying, because you're basically just, all the stuff that you're spending your energy on to try to build a strategy is just getting picked apart by this thing, and it's affecting everyone on the table. So just an incredibly high value card. And then to
Mhm.
grab just any one thing from dust, it doesn't have to be the things you discarded, which I think would be an interesting subtext here, depending on how things shake out with the future testing of this game. But the ability to grab cards like the fusion fragments, you know, energy cells if you need them, depending on how early this card comes into play, could be neat.
And 2 energy too. Yeah, like you said, there's a lot of games that I've played where like I'll have a great turn. I'll be like, well, I bought 2 really good units, or I bought a relic and I went through a lot of my deck, but I didn't go through enough of my deck to reshuffle. So if anyone has a card like Drifter, or the CAMOCLOAK Sniper even, which is like the little brother to this card, like, you know, you just would really like to not have a discard pile a lot of the time in the mid to late game. It would be awesome.
The one thing going for us here is that it's not efficient, but
Yeah.
that,
Doesn't really need to be. This is pretty
yeah,
good.
at that point, yeah, who needs it?
Yeah, a lot of turns go like a good efficient card, slam a drifter, then you're good. Your turn is over and you're fine with it.
And none of your opponents are playing the game on their next turn. Yeah, it's
Yep.
great. All right, Shadowstep Spymaster. This is the other card in the colony set that provides a victory point. Our first 6 costs in the colony set, another attack, as you could have assumed, and all opponents discard 1 card, or choose an opponent to discard 2 cards. And then the follow-up effect, choose 1 card from each opponent's discard, and then dust them. So, very similar to Flameblade Drifter in the sense that your opponents are all dusting a card, or your opponents are all dusting a card from their graveyard, or discard pile rather. But then you're also just choosing, you're also just having your opponents discard a card. So basically what you're saying is, if Flameblade Drifter is a whiff because your opponents are able to cycle through their deck and not have a discard pile at the end of their turn, Shadowstep Spymaster says, yeah, that's fine. I'm just going to make you discard a card, and then that card is just going to the dust pile. So pick a card in your hand and put it in the dust.
Yeah, at the very least they get choice. Like, they're still happy they don't have a discard pile already. but you get to, you know, they don't get to get out scot-free, right? They get to discard and then dust.
Yeah, this card is the step up from that. On top of that, it's providing 2 energy, very similar to Flameblade, and then it's providing that victory point. So it just holds its value throughout the game, which is again, just it makes it a very powerful card. Shadow Step's
Yeah.
probably one of the more powerful 6-drops in the set. So
One victory point doesn't seem like a lot, but bear in mind, like a lot of people are dealing in 4s and 2s. This is like the tiebreaker situation. Like even if you only pick one of these up, you're ahead of the other guy who has the same amount of relics and the fusion shards at your table. That's a big deal.
And I guess this can be a good point to note it, and I'm sure we'll talk about it more when we go over relics in a few videos. But the idea being that I found that most games, if you can somehow manage between 16 to 18 victory points, you're usually in a good spot to win the game. Whether that means you're getting it all out of relics and a couple of fusion fragments, or you're just going full send and trying to pick up as many Shadowstep Spy Masters as possible. I found that 16 to 18 is normally where most players are winning the game.
And you don't need to get them right away. Don't worry about it. You'll get them eventually.
Yeah. Right. Not with Shadowstep out there discarding and dust and stuff.
Nope.
All right.
Hey, I think we're moving on to my actual favorite card in the game because I'm just an awful person.
Yes. Now and once again, it's another attack. So let's finish it strong. What do we got here, Christian?
LIGHTLANCE Sovereign, 6 cost attack, 2 energy, unblockable, all players, dust 1 active shield. So this is like the shield. This is like the most anti-shield card in the game. Like if like multiple people have shields, it's insane. This card actually used to be way more insane. I don't even remember how, but like there was a benefit for each shield you dust with this, which was just totally absurd.
Yeah, I think you gained an energy for it.
Yeah, like Jesus Christ, right? Like it doesn't need to be doing all that. But even just as this, like it's just such a scary card, right? Like this is the card where if it's in the pool, you actually feel bad about like taking powerful shields because like someone could have the Sovereign, and not only is my shield like my tempo is kind of gone there, but it's in the dust now, which means someone could pick it up somehow. But I do love this card. It's so good. Love the reactions at the table when you buy the first Sovereign of the game. Everyone's like, oh, here we go. Hope they don't draw it. But yeah, really, really fun. And probably a necessary card, or like you just get a lot of turtles. I don't mean like the turtle, but like you turtle behind shields a bunch. Like it helps that not be a thing that happens all the time.
Yeah. And I think that's something and I'm always going to say that, just important to note. The idea being is that none of the cards that we've gone over are duds by any means. All of these cards fit into a strategy some way or another. There's no like learning curve cards like Hydrobot Crab that just exist for the sake of just, oh, I need to know that this card exists because there's better cards than this to play and I need to learn that, like that built-in education mechanic. All of these cards are good. And the thing to note on top of that in regards to LIGHTLANCE Sovereign are shields can get very out of hand very quickly, and without checks like LIGHTLANCE or the wolves from the last video, shield strategies would be so insane if there wasn't some way to just get rid of shields. So, the ability to kind of play that kind of war of attrition between the guy who's picking up lots of attack cards or the guy who's trying to go the mountaintop tortoise route. It's a neat little back and forth to see who's going to win, because they're, at that point it's so evenly matched. It sucks to have someone sovereign your mountaintop tortoise, but it also is equally as bad when someone just has mountaintop tortoise getting infinite value and you just can't find LIGHTLANCE when it's active. So
yeah,
neat ideas there.
And not every pool of cards needs a LIGHTLANCE or a wolf, but just a little bit of a pool building 101 or pool drafting. If you're putting really good shields in the pool, just throw a couple reasonably good attacks in there too, just to make sure there's like a thing to get rid of the shields. Otherwise, everyone's just gonna have a shield the entire game, which actually sounds interesting to do once, but I wouldn't recommend it, I think.
I think I've found, and I think if we want to explore that rabbit hole just hypothetically, I think the idea is that if shields get left unchecked, games end very quickly, because of just the residual energy value that they provide. Is what I've come to find. I played with Ryan the other day, and we realized we didn't have any way to get rid of shields in a pool, and so the battle, the one that provides 2 energy every turn, the game was over in like 4 turns. I was like,
yeah, you
wow,
grab that guy. Eventually, you grab one bigger shield when you can afford it. Then you're just good. You just sit on it.
Every hand of 5, you got at least 4 to 5 energy if you can put a single combo together. Yeah, I was just grabbing relics every other turn. I was trying to be cute, but I was like, oh wait, I can just win the game. So
Yep.
yeah, it's what it is. But
Yeah,
yeah,
this is also another card that gets a lot better with 4 players too. Didn't mention that, but yeah, really, really good.
yes, it's very, very punishing card, especially when you can have the Grand Slam of just knocking out 3 opponent shields all at once.
How to invite 3 people over to play this cool new game you found on Kickstarter and then make them hate you in one night. Yeah.
It's fun. Oh man. So, Colony, let us know what you think. Leave a like, leave a comment. You're Christian.
I am.
Spencer has been keeping an eye on the videos. He will be answering questions with us, and anything that I can't answer, I can always lean on him for. So please, guys, ask your questions, get involved. And if you haven't already, we mentioned it at the start of the video, but we'll mention it here too. Go check out the Kickstarter. Especially if you live in North America and you'd like to get your hands on a copy, go throw Spencer a couple of bucks and pick yourself up a copy. The Kickstarter will be done August 17th. And yeah, we need to raise as much money as we can to get this into the hands of as many people as possible. So go check it out. All of those links will be down below. Any closing thoughts on the colony from you?
Colony's
Mr. CV?
great. If you want to play like me, pick a lot of colony cards and make your friends discard and dust a bunch of stuff. And go check out the Kickstarter in the description. Do that first, otherwise you won't have the cards. They have to do the Kickstarter, then they have to get the cards, and they have to pick the colony cards, and they have to make their opponents dust.
And then they have to make friends so that they can then be mean to those friends. Yes, got it. All right, perfect. It's all coming together. Guys, thank you so much. We'll see you guys next time. Till then.
We're not doing Peach anymore?
I don't know. It doesn't feel right.
I left this in.